Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Welcome to another Next-Gen event. This is a special event because we organized it together with quite a number of other SAP teams. For example, here together with Daniel. So this event is all about SDGs. And I guess as you decided to come to this event, you probably have an idea what it is, but Daniel, maybe you can explain us what the SDGs are. What does SDG stand for anyway?
Yeah, and let me start with a little anecdote, Bernd, because I was invited to a panel discussion in Wuppertal, and the first question from the audience from one guy was in the context of the SDG, and the CEO of a big insurance company standing next to me on stage was asking me, what did he say? SUV? So it is not well known. It is well known here in the expert community. This UN, United Nations 17 Global Goals for Sustainable Development, or SDG, Sustainable Development Goals called. And they were defined 2 years and 3 weeks ago by 193 country representatives, the governments of these countries. It was an outcome of a stakeholder dialogue which was going on over a period of 3 years, and they come up with 17 goals. Maybe you have heard about the Millennium Goals, 10 goals, and these goals were more focusing on the developing countries. With the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, this is definitely a homework for each and every country in the world, and not just for the developing countries. And of course, we are typically used at SAP to know 3, 4, maybe 5 goals, but not more, to have a clear prioritization. So that is criticism a little bit, of having 17 and 169 sub-goals and more than 230 KPIs. But it shows as well, Bernd, the huge spread, which is needed. So sustainability is not just about CO2 emissions, carbon emissions. It is much broader. And most of these targets can be well linked together.
I was just going to ask, 3 years, how many UN organizations are there? Are there 17 UN organizations as well? It's certainly a compromise, right, that they ended up with 17 goals. Why are we at SAP talking at all about it? I mean, apart from maybe a little bit of CSR, or why are we so interested? Is there a link to digitization?
Yeah, for sure, and there's not just a link to digital transformation, there is a need for digital transformation. So without information technology, these 17 goals will never be achieved. So it's needed, innovation is needed. So today we are in some of these, with these targets, we just don't know how to get there, how to achieve them, but what's definitely sure is that information technology is needed. And so for us, SAP being in the driver's seat for digital transformation for many of our customers, there's a great business case coming out of that. This is a business opportunity as well for us, and it's a good business in various terms. So good business to save our planet, but as well to make good money. So we can combine that. So that is key, and we will later see great examples here on stage shown to you, but as well a call for action to all of you. Join the Open SAP course, which will start on Monday next week, where we'll focus on 7 of the SDGs and show the examples how technology from us can contribute to achieve these goals.
And we as SAP, how do we define sustainability for us?
Look, Bernd, today we are all well trained for many years, for decades, to optimize in financial terms. And that is important, and of course we should continue with that. But in addition to that economic view, to that financial optimization view, let's add to our business activities, to our business decisions, the impact of such a decision for us, to human beings, and to the environment, to our planet. So if we look at that holistically, covering the economic, the social and the environmental dimension, that leads to more business success, in particular in the long term. And Bernd, many companies thought, and I would say maybe SAP as well, so 5 to 10 years back, you're either profitable or you're sustainable. Now you can really observe across the various industries that companies understand, no, they can only be successful in the market if they have a sustainable business strategy and not just a siloed approach.
Sounds good to me. So that's why we also focus on sustainability in that sense.
Yes, yes, of course. And let me share, Bernd, a little bit why we are focusing on that. And it's because of you, because of you, because of you, because of 92% of all of you told us it's so important to pursue sustainability. You would like to work for a company which is a sustainable one. That is important not only for the existing colleagues here at SAP, but as well for the colleagues we would be an attractive employer in the future. That is one part. Let me go through the various stakeholder groups. Of course, the customers. Every day, and Connie is sitting here, every day Connie receives a questionnaire from the field, from our sales organization, from our customers, independent of any functions and features of the respective software solution they are looking for. Do you have an environmental management system which is certified? Do you have a human rights, labor standard policy in place? Do you have carbon emission targets? Do you have a strategy or whatever? Tons of questions every day. Yeah, so it's a license to operate topic. So there's a risk to be out of the business if we cannot say yes, yes, yes. That is another aspect. Of course, continuing with the customer as a stakeholder group, they expect solutions from us to help them to fulfill their sustainable business strategies and their sustainability targets. It is in addition. And look at the 17 SDGs. It is in addition a driver for innovation, because with efficiency alone we will definitely not solve the challenges of our planet. Yeah, so we need to do things differently, and that is a driver for innovation. So maybe you have heard about this purpose-driven innovation more and more, yeah, and for sure we will talk about that later in our panel discussion. And then investors. And just yesterday I had a conversation with a colleague who mentioned, oh, investors are purely focusing on profitability. Yeah, that is maybe the old world. They move, of course from my perspective they could accelerate that movement, but they move more and more understanding not only the financial but as well the non-financial performance of a company. And that helps them to evaluate if they should invest or not, and the so-called SRI, socially responsible investors, they use sustainability criteria as a basis of their investment decisions, and we are quite proud that we were able to double the amount of these investors, and they are not the investors purchasing the share today and selling tomorrow. They are more mid and long-term oriented, so of course our CFO Luca loves them. Yeah? So this is a little bit explaining why it's so important in the business context of SAP where we are, to fulfill these various expectations from stakeholder groups, from us, from employees, from customers, from investors, and as well as an innovation driver.
Okay, sounds great. I think we can now start by looking into the different dimensions a bit more deeper. I would like to invite on stage now Alexandra van der Ploeg, and she will tell us about our CSR strategy and how that links to the Sustainable Development Goals.
Thank you very much.
All yours.
Thank you. I just realized that you guys have it easier. It's nice to have a dialogue like that. Now I have a one-way street. I'm just going to correct Bernd, but everybody does that. I have a Dutch name. It's a bit complicated. It's actually van der Ploeg. But that's part of a globalized world, right? Daniel was mentioning, the interconnectedness and the complexity of the Sustainable Development Goals, and what we see in corporate social responsibility is that because of that, the complexity and the interconnectedness, it is so incredibly important to focus at the same time. 17 goals is a lot. You can't disregard 17 because it's all about partnerships. But it's not a goal in itself that has a direct outcome in terms of solving world hunger or giving access to quality education to all. But because of that, we in CSR have decided already quite a while ago, we can't do everything under the sun. It's impossible. We have limited resources like everybody else does. And particularly also in light of the SDGs, we need to figure out what we want to focus on. So, you know, we've been on a journey in the last years to figure out what strategic corporate social responsibility means in the context of SAP, and now 2.5 years ago, sort of the context of the Sustainable Development Goals added to that. I will share that with you in a little bit, and I think I need the pointer now. But one of the first things that we did, so those are the 17 goals. I don't know if anybody of you knows that we have a CSR mission at SAP. Do you guys know the CSR strategy at SAP? Some of you nod, some of you go like, never heard of it. Those of you who do know, do you have any, if you look at the 17 goals, which goals do you think are aligned most to what we do in corporate social responsibility at SAP? Any ideas? Daniel, you're not allowed to talk. If you don't know them, then all right, we'll come to it, okay? I'll reveal it in a little bit. But before that, what we did is 2.5 years ago, before the Sustainable Development Goals were ratified, we actually joined an initiative called Impact 2030 in December 2015. So we were pioneers, early adopters, so to speak. And Impact 2030 is the only private sector-led initiative currently out there that looks at how corporate volunteering can support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. It was incredibly slow going, but the whole movement is starting to roll a little bit faster. We have about 60 companies that have joined Impact 2030 now. We have companies like Pfizer, IBM, Google, We Communications, Singtel, who have all joined this movement. And it's all about three things, basically. It's about figuring out how we can activate employees within companies to support the Sustainable Development Goals through volunteering. There's three objectives that the movement supports. One of them is activate. And that's basically, you know, as Daniel was saying, when you enter a room and ask people how many people know the Sustainable Development Goals, a lot of people don't really know about them. And if, then they've heard on a very high level. So it's about explaining to employees what Sustainable Development Goals are. There's a lot of resources out there, not just in the media, that explain what the SDGs are. But if you ever have a little bit of time and you are interested in it, take a look at the Impact 2030 website and go to the link that you see there with introducing the global goals. Because it's a lot of material on there that explain the SDGs in more detail. And it's a 1-hour session that you could even do in team meetings if you wanted to do so. What I find even more interesting though, and I'm going to test this in a few weeks' time with my son, is the next one, Employees Teach the Global Goals. This is a brand new toolkit that Impact 2030 has developed, and I would like to encourage you to take a look at that. It's basically how we, as employees, but also as parents, or aunts and uncles, or grandparents, can go into schools to work with our sons and daughters and nieces and nephews, whoever it is, to explain the Sustainable Development Goals to them, to give them a feel for what they are and what it means to them in their world. It's a whole toolkit, everything is there. The good news is it's being translated into German as we speak, and so it will be available as well. I will test it in a few weeks' time with my son's class. He's actually not very happy about it. I think he's 13. I think he's a little bit ashamed of his mom coming into school and doing this. So I have to figure out how I balance that. But I think it's important just to know that there is a lot out there that is not very complex, that is, you know, filtered down really well, and that explains the SDGs for us, but also for kids who are the future of the world, what the SDGs mean and what it means to them. The other piece next to activate is collaborate. Honestly, this is the hardest piece of it all, because basically what it says is it's all great and well that all these companies are in this movement, but rather than us continuing in the way that we are working with volunteering, are there opportunities for us to create synergies, to start working with each other and start addressing some of these SDGs together? We at SAP have been forerunners in that. We've been trying to drive joint projects with other companies. And I've pulled out my hair on this. It is incredibly hard to do because declaring your intent and knowing that 1 + 1 should equal 3, and that everybody has limited resources and you should combine those resources to achieve more together in terms of social impact seems very obvious and logical. But as soon as it comes to leaving company egos at the door, how do you share success? Who gets the bigger logo? Silly things like that, but it becomes incredibly hard. We did a joint project together with Telefónica and La Caixa in Madrid in February this year. It took us 14 months to get the project off the ground. It was very successful. Everybody was really happy. Basically what we did is we created joint volunteering teams that worked with nonprofit organizations in Madrid all around the topic of youth unemployment. Very successful. The organizations were super happy. All of the participants were super happy. You would think, we're on a roll now. This is going to work. We went back to the organizations or to the companies a few weeks afterwards and said, are we going to do a new edition, 2018? Yeah, well, we can try, but let's wait and see. Let's come back to it later. So it's very hard going. But at least the platform is there through Impact 2030. And the last bit is measurement, and I know that Will is probably going to talk about that more. This is a tough one as well. Don't worry, there he is. Measurement is a tough one because, how do you need to find data that you can actually aggregate and make it make sense? Don't compare apples and pears, and especially if you start looking at it from an intercompany perspective, it becomes pretty tough. Anyway, so that's a bigger initiative that we've joined in CSR, and please do check out especially the Teach the Goals. I think it could be pretty exciting. I'm excited about it. Okay, back to the CSR mission. This is our CSR mission. So as you see, we are primarily addressing SDG number 4, 8, and 17. So it all has to do with focus and being more strategic in what we do. CSR it's an interesting field, right? You can live it very philanthropically, or you can try to figure out, how do you truly make a difference as a company and make social impact? And then you have to take a look at what our core assets are and what's important to us as a business. So being strategic means, how do you create impact on society, but how do you also create value for us as a business? So when you look at the mission statement, I think, it's probably fairly easy to understand why we have that particular mission statement in CSR. Because frankly, it's all about preparing young people for our ecosystem and preparing young people to have access to the digital economy. In CSR, we primarily take a look at it in terms of target audience, we look primarily at underserved communities. So, there's obviously lots that is going on within SAP that does the same thing and does it better than we do, or does more of it, like University Alliances, for example. But we take primarily the track of, okay, who doesn't have the access, the privileges that many others might have, and to ensure that they don't get left behind and that they have the same opportunities as others have as well. So that's where our focus primarily sits. In terms of pillars, we basically focus on two things. On the one hand, we try to work with innovative nonprofit organizations that look at how they can prepare young people for their workforce. And what we do is basically what we do as SAP as well. We help them run better. So we try to build their capacity primarily through volunteering, putting teams together, and go fairly deep in terms of looking at how they need to set themselves up to be more effective and more efficient so that they can increase their social impact. That's the one angle of it. And I'll give you examples what that all means, and I'll give you examples in the German context. And the second piece is around skilled workforce. So I'm pretty sure you've all heard about code leaks. Usually when we talk about Code Weeks, it's Africa Code Week that gets mentioned. But it's programs like that, where we try to ignite a spark of interest in terms of coding with young people. That's what we talk about under that. We have a few global programs, but primarily CSR is driven regionally and locally because you need to adapt things to local and regional needs. There's no point in saying, this is how things need to be done on a global level, but you really have to adapt things. In terms of being strategic, again, you have to, if you want to be strategic, you have to look at your core assets. In our case, we primarily make use of talent, which is you, and that's primarily volunteering. So we try to infuse volunteering in almost all of the programs that we drive. And as I said, quality education and economic opportunity, 4 and 8, that's primarily what we do. So we try to, not because the others are not important, but these are the most important ones in the context of who we are as a company and what we need in terms of workforce for the future, for our ecosystem. Make sense? All right, I'm going to give you a few examples. And I will give you Germany examples, okay? So if you're interested in other regions or global, please come and talk to me. But because we're in Germany, I thought it's better to focus on what we do here. And the next few examples are all in the context of goal number 4. So primarily education, a little bit of economic opportunity as well, but primarily around access to education, and in our case, particularly access to digital skills, to the digital economy. This is the newest brainchild of the CSR team here in Germany. It's called Meet and Code. It is, it was inspired by Africa Code Week. It's the first year that this is being done across NEE actually. And so far it will take place from the 7th of October until the 22nd of October across NEE. And it's all about doing workshops, coding workshops with kids. And we have about 500 different events that are planned across NEE. And the one that I think is going to be interesting to you, if you have children in your sort of environment, consider taking them to the Technoseum in Mannheim on the 22nd of October. It's a Sunday, so you don't have to take time off work. It's an action day that is planned in sort of the framework of Meet and Code, so sponsored and supported by SAP. There's a lot of different training and education institutes that are going to be at the Technoseum, and what they're going to try and do is show kids how incredibly exciting technology is. So there's a lot planned. It looks like it's going to be a very, very interesting event. I'm taking my kids. So please take a look. It should be really, really exciting. So that's the one that is sort of closest to you. But if you go to the website of Meet and Code, you will find a lot of other events that are taking place here in the region that you could also take a look at. But this is, I think, the action day at the Technoseum is probably going to be the most exciting one. And that's goal number 4. Whoever has been with SAP here for a little bit longer probably knows about First Lego League. First Lego League is honestly probably one of the oldest running, and Mia is nodding, the oldest running CSR programs that we have. And it's still relevant because they're actually really good at, creating innovation into the First Lego League and keeping it fresh and new. So First Lego League takes place almost in a lot of different countries, but primarily in Middle and Eastern Europe, and primarily also here in Germany. On the 25th of November, again in the Technoseum, you see that they've become a big partner of ours, there's going to be the regional competition for Lego League, for the First Lego League. And you can go and see what all these teams of young people have been doing in terms of Lego blocks, robotics, and technology. So it's really very exciting to see. I think some of you might be involved in it. But it doesn't get old at all. It's an incredibly interesting way of providing access or showing to kids how exciting technology can be and what opportunities there are. So if you're around on the 25th of November, check out the Technoseum again. But ultimately, and you guys all know that, you know, being a part of the future workforce and having access to the digital economy, it's not just about skills, or hard skills like coding skills and programming skills. There's more to it. And particularly if we look at where potentially the future of work is going, there's other particularly soft skills that are going to become incredibly important. So analytical thinking, critical thinking, innovation, figuring out how do you prioritize out of a mass of information. How do you collaborate in a virtual setting? All of those things are going to become increasingly important, and the future workforce is going to be hit by that even stronger than we are. So there's more that needs to happen in terms of preparing them than just giving them the hard skills. Why I'm saying that is because Cleverling is a little bit like that. You know, it's just opening up that world to kids a little bit. Some of you might have heard about it. It's a very interesting, innovative program where SAP employees actually team up with kids from schools in Emmertsgrund and Boxberg. Anybody who knows that region knows it's not the most privileged communities in Heidelberg. And you have a lot of kids in those schools who, because of their family background, have absolutely no access to, you know, what the workforce could look like, or what economic, or you know, what work there could be out of what they see from their families. So an example that we like to give is, you know, there's one of the girls that is being mentored by an SAP employee. Her mom works in a nail studio, her aunt works in a nail studio, and I think her grandma works in a nail studio as well. So guess what? If you asked her a year ago, what do you want to become? She would say, I want to work in a nail studio. Logical, right? Because that's the world that she sees. Now a year later, after having had a lot of interactions with her mentor here at SAP, she suddenly sees that there's much more out there. And there's actually a lot of opportunities for her, and she just didn't know about it. So it was just providing her with those, opening her world up is basically what the mentor did. And she's now looking at what she wants to study, probably engineering. So a completely different world suddenly opens up. So it's a really, really interesting program where you work one-on-one with kids. And I know that they're always looking for mentors from SAP. So if it's something that you're interested in, please ask us and let us know. Come to this one, the last one. I think my colleagues from Germany sent the email out yesterday, a reminder. October is a busy month, right? We have People Week, there's other things going on, and we have Month of Service. We have a lot of volunteering opportunities for people in the region. So if you're interested in, just connecting with the local communities, connecting with people on a different level than you might do at work or at home, please consider joining one of our volunteering events. It's a Month of Service, happens across the globe, always in October. And each year we have more and more employees who are joining us. I think last year we were at about 20,000, 22,000 employees from SAP that participated in the Month of Service. So check out, if you've sort of clicked the email away, or if it still sits with you, it says CSR Deutschland, I think, and it will link you directly to some of the volunteering opportunities. And just take a look at it and see if there's anything in there that interests you. So all of that is attached, most of the examples that I gave you were around the SDG number 4. There's obviously also SDG number 8, but I'm running out of time, so I can share those examples with you another time. But I think, for us what is important is, we can't do this without you. As I said, most of the programs that we have are built around including employee elements, employee engagement element. And if that is something that you're interested in and you want to sort of give some input and insights, please just take a look at the CSR Gen page, come and talk to us. There's a lot of opportunities to work with us. Again, please also understand, it is important to have a focus, and today within the framework of the SDGs even more so. So we will not be able to do everything. So primarily we will keep our focus on SDG number 4 and 8. So if you come and say, why don't we do something in number 3? It's a great goal, it's on healthcare, but we don't really do much with that. But please do consider being engaged. What we are going to do on our end, and this event is a sign of that, is we want to connect much stronger with what other areas of the company are doing. We're pretty closely aligned with our sustainability colleagues, and we want to work much closer with university alliances, with Open SAP, with diversity and inclusion, because frankly, if there's one thing that the SDGs have shown us, that our world and the issues that we have are so incredibly complex that none of us can solve them by ourselves. So we have to build partnerships, multi-stakeholder partnerships, internally, but also externally. Thanks a lot.